Who's in and who's out for the Texans Sunday, and will it be enough? Plus, Demeco says the rookie nameplate is off. It's time to go. That's what we've been waiting for, Coach.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. I want to thank my everydayers from the Himalayas for making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day, for listening to your Texans credential media member and football analyst, John Hickman, and more importantly, for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in the land. I wouldn't have been able to do it without my Bulls on Parade, my Swarmers, and thank you guys. Friday show a little late. I apologize. However, the topics and conversation for today, I think you guys will like. Of course, just what does a win indicate for Houston? They get a win for the first time this year. They'll be sitting at 500, and I think we need to be a little bit more optimistic. So stick around for that. When I close out the show with that conversation, Demeco Ryans says, no more rookies. The nameplate is off. What does that mean, Coach? I can tell you right now, all my Swarmers, all my Locked On Everydayers, we've been waiting for that moniker to get off. We've been waiting to see these rookies play a lot more. I think they did a good job of getting Woody Marks out there against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that should be a trend that should continue. However, we're going to open up today's show just talking about who's in, who's out for the Houston Texans, which is extremely important considering this is still a very important game. No matter how we view the Tennessee Titans, Houston absolutely needs to win. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Did not participate on Friday. Tight end Harrison Bryant, cornerback Damon Arnett, kicker Kami Fairbairn, he's going to be out. Jalen Petrie, he's going to be out. CJ Stroud, concussion, he's going to be out. All five of those names that I mentioned, they will be out Sunday, and I think that's extremely smart. And I don't necessarily think Houston needs CJ Stroud for Sunday's matchup. However, Buffalo, Houston, prime time, Thursday night on Amazon Prime, they're definitely going to need their franchise quarterback for that game. Questionable for Sunday, Ed Ingram with that knee. Full participants, Azeez Al-Shaair, Denico Autry, Braxton Berrios, Davis Mills, Dalton Schultz, and Cade Stover. That's very important. Also, no Miles Bryant, so I think that he is going to be, his availability will be up in the air. Let's keep in mind, Cade Stover, with him practicing this week and also with the injuries that Dalton Schultz have been battling throughout the year. Can't talk enough about this man and how important he's been for Houston. If they pass out an Ironman award at the end of the year, Dalton Schultz should definitely be in consideration for that. But because Cade Stover is back and also because of the matchup, this could be a perfect game to get him ready for the stretch of games to end the season. And also give Dalton Schultz a break, especially if this game gets out of reach early for the Houston Texans. But when we look at who's in and who's out, I think it's important to analyze, again, the importance of winning this game, right? If this was Buffalo and if Tennessee was on Thursday night, thank God we don't have to stay up for a Thursday night game like that. But I think the sense of urgency on either getting a player back out there or maybe just having a significant stand-in player for a guy like a Jalen Petrie, for CJ Stroud, of course, that would be more significant. But Davis Mills is 100% capable of beating the Tennessee Titans. We saw Houston's offensive line without Ed Ingram, without Titus Howard for a good part of that game, have their best performance of the year, right? So we look at what Houston was able to do against Jacksonville and the team that they're about to play in Tennessee. They absolutely need to replicate everything that they did on Sunday. But because Houston is a more talented team, Jacksonville is also dealing with some of their own issues. Xavier Woods, he's going to be out. Calvin really did practice this week, so he is expected to play. However, technically he's still questionable. Jeffrey Simmons is questionable. Arden Key is questionable. Some of those guys I think I expect to play. But if not, I mean, that just bodes well in the favor for the Houston Texans. But I think they're in a good spot right now, guys. I really do. I think that coaching has caught a stride. Defensively, they've already – that unit has already caught their stride. It kicked off the year. It kicked off preseason with a stride. But I think offensively, when we look at some of the things the Houston Texans offense have been able to do the last 2 of the last 3 weeks, it's been extremely positive. And I'm going to go back and say this, and I know if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. But if C.J. Stroud doesn't go down against Denver, we're looking at Houston potentially being on a 2-game win streak, trying to make it a 3-game win streak, looking at Houston getting over the 500 mark and possibly fighting for 6-5. So I think Houston is in a good spot, but for Houston to really maximize the opportunity that is in front of them right now, one thing that we've talked about here on the show, whether it's a squad show or whether it's with me Monday through Friday, my everydayers have heard me say this, for Houston, they got to move away from some of the things that they've been doing, and that is moving away from a guy like Christian Kirk. That is giving rookie running back, Woody Marks more carries. That's getting Jaden Higgins out there and featuring him a lot more. So when we come back, Demeco Ryans says no more rookies. What does that actually mean and how that's important for Houston to build off on Sunday and to close out the year? Before we have that conversation, it's important to dive into making games more exciting, and we can do that with PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this sports season, whether you're following NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. And if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operate, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL. That's the promo code to use to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Want to give you guys an update on when Houston runs the ball well. They're better when Houston is at their best running the ball. Shout out to Jason Braddock. On the left end of the offensive line, 6 yards per carry. On the right end, 5.9 yards per carry through the right guard, which, again, it's been Andrews, it's been Ingram, it's been Titus Howard. You know, as the pass blocking being the best, maybe not, but run blocking, the numbers show 5.6 yards per carry when the running back is rushing towards the right guard. Now, let's talk about the conversation while we're here. Demeco Ryans says, Woody Marks has done a great job. We got to continue to feed him. Keep in mind, he was featured in 80% of the offensive snaps against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coach also mentioned the catch radius of Jaden Higgins and the big playmaking ability from Jalen Noel in regards to making plays down the field. Demeco Ryans said they are not rookies. They are making plays. Before I dive into – well, I think it's important to dive into the numbers in terms of how the rookies have impacted the Houston Texans in wins and losses. Jaden Higgins in wins, 33 receiving yards, 8 first downs, 3 TDs. Jaden Higgins in losses, 13.8 yards, 3 first downs, 0 TDs. Jalen Noel in wins, 27.25 receiving yards, 8 first downs, 1 touchdown. In losses, 17.6 yards per game, 3 first downs, and, of course, 0 touchdowns. Woody Marks, who has more receiving yards than Christian Kirk on the year, has only been the true starter for one game. His week 10 was the highest percentage of snaps. Prior to that, it was week 7. In wins, 29 receiving yards, 4 first downs, 1 TD. In losses, 13 receiving yards, 2 first downs, 1 touchdown. And then the rushing yard numbers look like this. In wins, 54.5 rushing yards per game, 12 first downs, 2 touchdowns, 4.4 yards per carry. In losses, that number decreases nearly 3 times, 17.2 rushing yards, 1 first down, 0 touchdown, and the number 2.8 rushing yards per carry. The rookies absolutely have to be more a part of this game plan. No doubt about it. The numbers show it. The eye test back it up as well. When these guys are involved, whether that's running the ball, catching the ball, or if you want to look at pass blocking or opening up lanes on the outside, which is something that I think Jalen Noah can be better at, but just blocking from an outside receiver perspective, the offense looks better. The quarterback looks better. The quarterback play looks better. The flow of the game looks a lot better. And those guys are able to do a multitude of different things. Each and every one of those players that I just named on the year, Jaden Higgins, again, 3 touchdowns. And he's extremely good in the red zone. I think 2 of the 3, if not all 3 of his touchdowns come from the red zone. He could have had 2 on Sunday if Davis Mills would have turned his head, but he did have 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, in wins, you look at his downfield ability, may not be great, but possession receiver kind of put you in the mind of a taller Robert Woods at this point of his career. Jalen Noah, look at the field, the plays that he can make down the field. I think his longest catch on the year was 47. He's able to do that for a team. And what you also like about Jalen Noah and also Woody Marks, I'm getting to, they get the ball and they can turn upfield. Woody Marks and how important he's been. He has 16 first downs between receiving and running the ball in wins this year when he's involved, when he has the opportunities to get the ball in his hands. And he also has contributed with 3 touchdowns on the year, and one of them comes in the red zone as well. These guys are not the rookies. And when I look at the Houston Texans 2024 draft class compared to this year, the 2025 draft class, what I'm seeing is 2024, Kamari, Kalen, those guys, they came to a team that on the defensive side of the ball, they already had Demeco Ryans. They already had Demeco. They already had a Matt Burke who had already been here in Houston and understand what the Houston Texans were looking for and needed, right? That was already established. They came to their side of the ball that was established. The year before was a good defense. They came in and made it a better defense. And this year, they made it the number 1 defense. For the 2025 rookie draft class, Jaden Higgins, Ariante Ursary, who, again, I call him one of the better ascending players for this franchise, Jalen Noah, Woody Marks. They came to a franchise on the offensive side of the ball that was operating with a first-time play caller. You guys know it. Cole Popovich gets promoted to the full-time offensive line coach, right? They're trying to figure out what works best, what doesn't work. No Joe Mixon, no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs, who they lost in the offseason. So these guys were coming in with the same expectation, but not the same foundation. They absolutely came in with the expectation of being contributors. Maybe not day one starters. Like I said, Woody Marks only has 1 true starter not on his he's only been a starter once this year, a true starter. Same for Jalen Noah, not a lot of real stars. Jaden Higgins started it off, but it's been up and down. He's been subbing here and there. But these guys, I think now, when we look at where Houston is, back is against the wall, absolutely. They need to get players out there that can be explosive. These are the guys. It's not going to be Christian Kirk at this stage in his career. The perfect formula, and I hope Houston continues to look at it and use it, and I hope he can continue to perform as well as he did, but letting Woody Marks kick the game off and letting Nick Chubb kind of be a closer here and there, maybe depending on the quarter or the half. Like that may work for Houston moving forward. Letting Jaden Higgins get out there, especially if you want to start the drive with Xavier Hutchinson, I'm all for it. But Jaden Higgins is another true target in the red zone, an area where they've gotten better, but they're still one of the worst in the NFL. In Jalen Noel, I think the role of kickoff return, punt return, and also in the slot where we can give a break to Christian Kirk, however they want to look at it. But when we know we need it's 3rd and 8 and we need to get upfield, yeah, Jalen Noel can get the ball in his hands and he can get busy with it. Houston does not have a real screen threat. So whenever Houston wants to dump the ball off underneath and the pressure is there, and CJ or Davis Mills just need to move on and not bomb the ball downfield, Woody Marks has been that guy traditionally this year. So these guys are still quote-unquote rookies, of course, and rookie season isn't over. But I think what Demeco Ryans is getting at is we cannot continue to operate with these players as if the training wheels are still on, because they're not. And more importantly, Houston can't afford for the training wheels to be on in week 11 when they got to stretch their means. Houston is a team right now that you get that paycheck on Friday, and by Monday, you may be looking for noodles. You got to stretch them last $40 for 2 weeks. That's where Houston is right now. And when you get to that point, you have to figure out, okay, if I go with this option, can it get me through for another few days? Jaden Higgins, he can get you through for another couple of games. Because if you put him in the slot in the red zone, he's been able to prove he can score points. Jalen Noel, he can get you through. Woody Marks, he can get you through. As to where the other options, they're not players that are going to get the Houston Texans offense through. They cannot afford it. But I think we all foresee Houston getting the win on Sunday, and I look at Sunday's matchup as another building block for the rookies to get the ball in their hands, to work on some of the things that they practiced throughout the week, to get a better understanding of the offense and how to be weapons for the quarterback, which would be Davis Mills, to put points on the board, to execute in the red zone. When they played Tennessee the first time, that was the first time they scored in the red zone on the season. So let's build on that. Let's build on everything that we did against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So what would a win indicate for the Houston Texans? Let's close out the show with that conversation. And before we had that conversation, Rockets are in season. Of course, there will be a couple of more home games on the year for Houston. NFL season is here. NBA season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It can become frustrating. Gametime is the place to be. The app gives you the advantage. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Closing out today's show, just looking at what does a win indicate. Let's keep it simple. They got life. They got life. That's it. Hey, yo, this team was down 0-3 to start the season. I think they were averaging, 14 points per game during that stretch. Offensive line was bad. You had fans saying, man, I'm sorry, Bobby Sloyd, come back. And I always wonder internally, what did they feel was what's the timetable for Nick Caley here in Houston? How many of y'all wanted him fired after the first game? By the time they got down to 0-3, get him out of here right now. But I think a win would just indicate a team that took their losses, learned from the losses, and got themselves out of the hole. They could still very well not make the playoffs. They can win Sunday, and things can fall into their favor, and they can actually get control of the 7th seed. Doesn't mean that Houston will end the year off with it, but if that happens, I'm not a guy that believes in a lot of moral victories, but that would be a moral victory for the Houston Texans in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. You go from potentially having a top 5 pick on the year, which is where they were at one point, to competing for a playoff berth. So I think a win would just indicate so for a few things. Demeco Ryans having his first season that started with the adversity. The first year started with adversity. I believe they started off 0-2 on that year, but they got it going. But 0-3 this year. And the adversity for year one is different in year 3 because year 1, the expectation was he's a good coach. He has his quarterback. They're going to go through some things and they'll figure it out for the following years. The expectation for Houston that first year was never rookie of the year on both sides of the ball, a playoff berth by winning the division and a blowout playoff win against Cleveland. That was never the expectation. It just happened. So this will end up being a great season learning wise for Demeco Ryans. Whether or not fans agree, and y'all may not like me saying that, I'm not being a homer. I'm not being a team Demeco Ryans. I'm saying your head coach was punched in the mouth. Your franchise was punched in the mouth, and they responded well enough to get control of the 7th seed or running for the 7th seed. That's admirable. I also think a win would indicate let's reevaluate some of the people that were brought in the offseason that many of us wanted to move on from. Nick Caley, Cole Popovich, hey, those guys. Hey, yeah. You can say what you want to about Nick Caley, but Cole Popovich, I think, has done a good job. I think considering what he's had to work with, he's done a good job. Solid job. I think this offensive line is better this year. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the numbers for quarterbacks who played in 9 games. Of course, we know Houston has the early bye. CJ was knocked out of the Denver Bronco game early. So that number is kind of skewed a little bit, but he did end the game off, I believe, with 2 sacks. He did get sacked for sure. But if you look at those numbers, before the Thursday night football game, CJ Stroud, out of 9 games, he hadn't been sacked like a lot of those other quarterbacks. You got quarterbacks that's already sacked 30 times on the year. You got quarterbacks that's already sacked 25 plus times on the year. CJ's sitting at 17. He's sitting at a nice number where at one point it felt like, oh my gosh, he gonna get hurt again. That's what it felt like at one point. I want to make sure I give you guys the accurate number of where CJ Stroud is right now in terms of where he is in terms of being sacked. I'm looking at CJ Stroud numbers right now. Stroud has been sacked 17 times on the year. Houston's first 5 weeks of the season, 3 sacks, 3 sacks, 8 sacks, 10 sacks, 12 sacks. So he was sacked 12 times to open up the year. The last couple of weeks, let's take the 2 sacks away from Denver. We look at Seattle. He was sacked 3 times. We look at San Francisco, 0. We look at Denver, we look at 2. So since week 7 to week 9, 5 sacks. And some of those sacks we debate on how many are actually accounted towards CJ Stroud because of, his pocket awareness and how he's been drifting back and forth and how those mechanics have been breaking down, and at times it's improved, but it's kind of inconsistent. Your offensive line has been better. You see 17 sacks, or you see 20, 21 sacks on the year, but in actuality, maybe 15 are accounted to the offensive line, maybe 16, but all of those sacks, those numbers are not offensive line play. They've been better. Obviously, Houston can run the ball better, of course, but in terms of protecting the quarterback, they've been better. So I think a win, and I think if Houston goes to Tennessee and dominate and handle business, and they're able to continue to ascend upwards, this will be a conversation to be had where we got to look at, does the timeline get extended if Houston gets the 7th seed, get over from being 0-3 on the year, if they can conquer some of their early season demons, everything surrounding the chaotic franchise kind of calms down a little bit. Now it's back to strictly football instead of football in the drama storylines. Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow me on Twitter as well at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.